Does Billy Donovan's coaching fit the new direction of the Chicago Bulls roster seems like it's going on? Me and Pat the Designer are going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, Lonzo and Levine's Lonzo and Levine. Yeah, that is right. Lonzo and Levine's contracts could be looked to be dumped elsewhere. And then we're going to go over the salary cap and roster situation for the Chicago Bulls. All that and more on today's Locked On Bulls.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily Chicago Bulls podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. That's Pat the Designer, host and creator of the Windy City Breeze and host of the Chicago Bears podcast over at ESPN 1000. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls Central, Chicago Bears Central YouTube pages and podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Pat, people doubted it. If the changes to the Bulls roster were seriously going to happen, and they have. The Bulls have gone considerably younger, more athletic, do seem to be like a team that is going to try to push the pace a little bit more. Still not a lot of three-point shooting, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. The question that we have here is Billy Donovan the right coach for this new direction of the Chicago Bulls roster from what we know so far as the style, things like that? How you feeling about that, Pat?
I think this is interesting because when you look back at the past, right, like the best we saw this Bulls offense move, and listen, the Bulls defense still needed a lot of work in that time, but it was the first 35 games of the season. It was the Lonzo Ball Chicago Bulls when everybody was healthy and everybody could run and everybody was ready to go. We were top of the league in pace of play. We were top of the league in fourth quarter scoring, all of the things that we're not atop the league in now. And it raises the question for me, like, can we say that Billy Donovan has been given the team that he needed to coach since those first 35 games? Can we say that Billy Donovan has had the team in place that best accentuates what he's trying to run since those first 35 games? And I'm hard-pressed to say that we can until now. And that's why I think you see the Chicago Bulls so invested in starting to move some of these guys out, trying to get some of these guys off of the team because, I mean, it's finally you have a team that seems like it fits that run-and-gun style that was happening in the first 35 games. Yeah. Now, I don't know if that's going to work out, if it's going to play out that way, if everything's going to happen during the season, kumbaya. But I do think that now when you add a guy like Jalen Smith, you got P. Will on the team, you got Kobe White on the team, Josh Giddey, you know he wants to get out and run. If you have Ayo Dosunmu coming in off of the bench or however you want to structure the lineup, I think you do have a team, Matas Buzelis as well. I think you do have a team that is more like that first 35 games. And not to say I don't place any blame on Billy. You got to adjust in some way, and I think the ways that he adjusted are not good. I think that he put the Bulls in some tough situations. I think that he was also put in some tough situations as well. And so I do wonder, like, I think that Billy Donovan fits the new team more than he fit the team that he had without Lonzo.
I guess in some ways, yeah, I can see where you're getting at with that. I still think this is still a very different team than even what that team looked like, even the bare bones of it. Like, I get you're not comparing exactly what we had with Lonzo, but it's getting back to some of those same type of thought processes and executions on it, theoretically, right? And we'll see how it ends up executing. The thing that with Billy Donovan, and the thing that we have to give it credit for as well, I know me and you've talked about it here and you know off air, is the fact that this team doesn't look like it's going to have the best defense, but I think we forget too that we were top 5 and top 10 defense before last year, respectively, a few years before then. Billy Donovan has coached a pretty good team defensive system his years. We fell off last year. And so he's usually able to craft something together. And if the Bulls can do that, right, if they can just be decent defensively, I mean, have sound fundamentals and execution-wise, team-wise, you're not going to have the one-on-one defenders of a Caruso anymore, of Alonzo. You still got an Ayo Dosunmu there. We'll see how other players grow defensively and things like that. Still got Patrick Williams here as well. But I think those things of getting out, playing fast, being rebounded. We got 2 great rebounding guards in Giddey and Kobe White. Vooch, still, if he's on this team, is one of the better defensive rebounding centers in the league. Jalen is a solid rebounder as well. You can get out naturally in transition, like you said, not run and gun, but faster pace. I do think that we can play that style.
Yeah, and it's funny to me because like when I look back on like Billy Donovan's time here, and he's gotten killed for a lot of it, but even at times with that, right? Not to say Billy hasn't made some poor decisions, but I've always kind of looked at the front office and looked at ownership and said, okay, but are you giving him a team he can coach? I used to feel bad for Fred Hoiberg because Fred Hoiberg thought he was coming into a team that he was going to be able to, run and gun up the floor, 3-point shooting. We're going to be fast. We're going to be one of the fastest teams in the league. And then all of a sudden they turned around and they were like, Dwayne Wade and Rajon Rondo, here you go. That's what's going to get you there. Right? Like, yeah. So there is some, listen, and great coaches can adjust to almost anything. And we've seen that for the most part with some of the great coaches in this league. But it still has to be some semblance of a team build that fits your system. And when you look at this Bulls team, I do wonder, once Lonzo went down, how much of this team really fit his system? Because you had Zach LaVine in and out of the lineup with injuries. You've had, right, a bunch of guys who've been in and out of the lineup with injuries, but You've also basically at center had one of the slower guys in the league in Nikola Vucevic. You haven't had a backup center outside of Andre Drummond. I've got some issues with how you used Andre Drummond at times, but some of his time here, like the next best center that was on the team outside of Andre Drummond has been Tony Bradley.
How do you rank Tristan Thompson and Tony Bradley? Because
the top of the trash can, that smudge on there, and then there's the trash can.
Yeah,
that's basically the difference between them.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, then the only, as far as if you're talking about true centers,
still playing, by the way.
He played. Remember, he played this past year and got popped for performance enhancing drugs, and he was averaging like 3, 3, and 3. It's like, damn, you had to take performance enhancers to get 3 and 3. That's crazy.
Shout out Tristan. How old is Tristan? I feel like Tristan, another one of the ones that's younger than
He's 33 years old.
That's hilarious. But I do wonder with Billy Donovan.
Having that many kids will take some years off your life.
Yeah, having that many kids. He basically 60 in dog years.
Yeah.
That was a double entendre. I don't know if Musk caught that. But no, I think that I do wonder when I look at how the Bulls have played, right? How much of the structure of the team plays into a lot of the struggles we've seen with Billy Donovan, and if we see some of that change coming in now because there is more of a team that can get out and play with high pace.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, man. I know a lot of people, and I know you've probably seen the comments too. They're like, yeah, you changed the roster, but you didn't change Billy Donovan. It's a fail, and it's like, I think that there's a reason why they went out and got a playmaking point guard first, because that does help Billy Donovan's system. Now, I'm in no way saying that I expect Billy Donovan to be this great coach all of a sudden now because the roster got younger. I'm just saying that I'm not necessarily ready to just say he's going to fail in the philosophies. This team ain't going to win a lot of games, but did you lose your hat for a second?
Bro, I swear I saw a fly on my hat.
That's crazy.
Like I was looking across the screen, like I got to go back and see that. I was like, did a fly land on the brim of my hat? What's going on here, bro?
That's crazy.
But no, like I think, like to your point, the team around you does, to me, I think it's 60-40, right? I think the coaching is still somewhat important in the NBA, but it's more about the behind the scenes stuff. It's the what you're doing in practice, how you're setting your schemes, how are you setting guys up to be in a position to be successful. It does take for most coaches in this league, it is about the talent that you have on this team.
For sure.
And I think that's the part where, yes, the Bulls had talent on the team, and so everybody's like, you got to make this work, but is it the right talent? We saw the wrong talent not work. We've seen the wrong talent not work in a bunch of cities. Listen, Detroit's got talented players. There's no reason Monty Williams couldn't get anything out of him. Detroit has, like, Cade is talented. Jaden Ivey is talented, but how do those talented players work together? When Cade isn't as effective, when there's no other shooters on the team.
Yeah.
It makes it a little bit more difficult to go out there and win games when I pass to a dude who shoots as good as I do. You know what I mean? Like,
the Bulls should at least be better than the Pistons.
That is a fact. The Bulls coming into this season, we got to talk about our expectation, because I feel like there's a lot of people that are like, we about to win 11 games. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm that low.
I don't think it's going to be that bad.
Side, it's like, we got a 45-win season coming. I'm like, I don't know if I'm that high either.
It's not that. We got to wait to see when the roster's kind of finalized. That may be our last episode coming out of free agency. Once we kind of know exactly what's going on, is that we'll do that episode as far as expectations. So anyway, next up, we're going to be talking about the Bulls reportedly wanting to dump the contracts of Lonzo and Zach and what that could mean for the team. But before we get into that, got to get into a message from one of our sponsors, and that is FanDuel. I love sports. We all love sports, and we never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like we want them to. But with FanDuel, it lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Patrick. Came out yesterday, the most obvious news was as far as Zach LaVine, but the Bulls are also looking to dump the contract. I keep using that word just because it was in the report. Like, I'm just being petty at this point. To dump the contracts of both Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine. How you feeling, Pat?
Are we shocked by this? Are we surprised by this? Like, this fits everything that we've heard about both of these guys. Know, I guess, is maybe a little bit of an update, but guys, I'm glad that the Bulls are seeing the light. I'm glad to know. Listen, the one thing I will say about the free agency this offseason, it feels like AK, I don't know if he got more control. I don't know if he's seeing the light. I don't know if Michael came in and was like, do what you got to do to figure some things out. We'll figure out how to spend the money after. Like, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what happened, but the moves that he's made have been the most strategic since the first offseason.
Yeah.
And the idea of dumping Lonzo Ball and LaVine's future contract, shocking. Not at all. The main dudes on Twitter could tell you that this is a good idea. Yeah, I mean, the Bulls fans who are in the little Twitter spaces every single night could tell you that this is a good idea.
Listen, I'm letting y'all know right now, as grown people, if you're in spaces at 1:00 in the morning, you're a loser. Just letting everybody know that right now. Go ahead, keep it going.
I've seen Kevin Durant in some of those spaces.
Okay, I stand by what I said. I stand by what I said. If somebody who doesn't even brush their hair or put on lotion, he's a loser.
Oh man, KD is an interesting dude, man. But no, I feel like this is the first offseason where we're seeing something that actually feels like, hey, we realize this isn't working. We're going to move this in a different direction, and we're going to move hell or high water to make sure that ends up happening. I'm not surprised to hear that the Lonzo and LaVine contracts are the ones that they want to move the most, because you know that they want to put themselves in a position, free agency next season. They want to put themselves in a position to be enticing to teams next season, and that means you have to win with some young pieces now, and you have to have money next year. You're not going to have money. Well, I guess you would have Lonzo's money next year, but with Zach on the books, you're stuck with that.
I think I don't know what the Bulls salary cap situation is looking like next year. That'd be interesting to see. But I mean, listen, at the end of the day, no, it looks like the Bulls, as of right now, if they kept Zach, $49 million beneath the salary cap. That's actually pretty nice amount of money. I don't know
well, I guess because DeMar would be off the books.
Yeah, DeMar's off
the books already.
Zoe's off the books at that point in time. But yeah, that's crazy. But here's what I'll say is that it just makes it just makes sense at this point. Like, no, I get that people are holding out hope. Oh, but they said he's cleared for 5-on-5. But guess what? Even if he is cleared, he's going to be on a heavy minutes restriction. He's not going to play back-to-backs. Like me and Pat have told you guys months ago, in a perfect world, Lonzo Ball coming back fully healthy, opening by training camp, you're probably looking at 50 games as the most amount of games that he's going to play. And even then, if the Bulls know, hey, Lonzo, you can play 50 games and look good, we ain't bringing you back. Then what's the point?
I think that's the most important part of it, right? There's no world in which you can trust Lonzo Ball coming back.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's no world where even if he plays well, you're like, no, we're going to pay you again. Unless he takes a vet of $450,000. Here you go. right? Jerry farted it out this morning. This is fresh. Like that's the only way I'm bringing Lonzo Ball back to the Chicago Bulls. I'm sorry if that hurts people's feelings, but like, and I get it. We always want to see people, especially I feel like around the Bulls, around the Bears, around the Cubs even, right? Like we always want to see this movie ending. And it's not coming.
Yeah.
Like we always want to see this like, he came back and he got back on the court and got the standing ovation. And then like the movie freezes with him doing a layup. You know why those movies end there? Because after that, there's nothing else to talk about because his career ended after that moment. Like, let's stop looking for the storybook endings with all of these.
Like everybody likes to talk about Rudy, but people forget Rudy ain't do nothing after that movie ended.
Bro,
but,
let me tell you this. You know what the worst part about becoming like a sports, like actually somebody that does this for a living, and I sit there and I focus in on stuff, was the moment where I was watching Rudy with my dad, and I looked over at him. I was like, "Hey, yo, Rudy was trash." Like, he should have never got on that field. I don't care what he was doing in practice. What they put him on the field for? That was dumb. Like, I'm sorry, bro. Rudy was trash, bro. Like, there's a lot of movies where they be doing that. All them Disney movies back in the day where it's like as an adult, they just don't make sense. Like, hey, I just got off the phone with Duke, and they going to give you a full ride scholarship. Nah, bruh. I want to jump rope for a living. Shut your dumb ass.
Now, Rudy did go on to be a sociologist. He actually went on to be pretty successful in life, just not in football.
Fine. I love it. Yeah. I'm glad that he did that. I'm glad he had a successful career. He was trash at sports. He was a bad football player. That's why he didn't get on the field. Right? Like, we're not Bronny James and Rudy out here. You know what I'm saying? Like,
he was 5'6" as a defensive end, bro. That's crazy.
You know what I mean? Put him on special teams. Why? So he can die. This is an era where you like, it was just okay. Like, somebody died on the field. It was just like, oh, somebody pick him up.
Oh, man,
get him up out of there,
bro.
I know. Rudy was trash. It was a good movie, though. It was a good movie.
Great movie. Great movie.
But he was not a good football player.
How did we get on? I don't even know how we got on this Rudy thing, bro.
It had to be something with Javon Carter.
That's crazy.
And
they created a whole movie because he got 1 sack. 1 sack. 1 sack. 1 sack.
It's got more sacks than Dominique Robinson, I guess.
He's still signing autographs to this day because of that 1 sack. That's crazy.
Who was it? His quarterback Steve Young? I think his quarterback was Steve Young. If I'm not mistaken, his quarterback was hold on. Now I got to figure out.
Can't be.
Hold on. Rudy's quarterback in the movie. Oh, I missed by a lot. Who was the quarterback?
They all don't look alike, Pat. They all don't look alike.
No. He had like his quarterback. I think maybe it's Doug Flutie.
That makes sense.
Maybe it's Doug Flutie. I think it's Doug Flutie. I think Doug Flutie was his quarterback. Yes. But like Doug Flutie was talking about it on the radio. He literally was like, listen, they embellished it. It's a movie. They made it, you know what I mean, exciting. But it really wasn't all of that. Like, yeah, it was a joke to carry him off the field. Like somebody was like, oh, he did it, like carry him off the field. And now, like in the movie, that's an iconic moment. It's like, all right, dog. Like, it's tough when you hear the behind the scenes, bro. That's like when I heard about freaking Remember the Titans. And
Joe Montana was the quarterback. It's right team. Joe Montana was the quarterback.
Joe Montana, okay. Joe Montana. I said Doug Flutie. What the heck did I give Doug Flutie from?
I don't know, bro. Like you be tripping sometimes. When you're tired, you do a lot of episodes. Bro. Any last thoughts on the Bulls dumping the contracts a lot?
No, because I don't care about this. Like, we knew this already. Like, freaking, like that's why we talked about Rudy for the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there you go. Go watch Rudy. It's a great movie, man.
It's a great movie.
I mean, but listen, this is the thing though, Pat. when they tell the story of Lonzo Ball in 20 years, they're going to say there were 2 podcasters that doubted the return of Lonzo Ball. And then that's when we're going to be played by 2 people and they're going to be talking about us. So we're going to be in the movie.
Who's playing us, bro?
I mean, bro, it's 25 years. The actors aren't even born yet.
They're not even here yet.
They're not even here yet.
Yeah, we do still look mad young.
Yeah, so there you go. There you go.
They made us old. That'll be bogus. They get like
they would do that. These 2 old podcasters, they didn't understand. That's exactly what they would do.
They would make us old as dirt, bro. I'd be played by like it'd be like old Chris Brown, like 50-year-old Chris Brown playing me.
Clint Eastwood in blackface.
That's just old Robert Downey Jr. in blackface. That's just playing you. That's just playing you. With a beard.
That's hilarious.
With the same accent.
Anyway, next up, we're going to be discussing the Bulls' current salary cap and roster situation, man, right after this. All right, Pat. So right now, the Bulls currently sit in a situation where they have hard capped themselves after using the mid-level exception, part of the mid-level exception, to sign Jalen. Now, this means that the Bulls still have some space. They still have they can still use the rest of the mid-level exception at about $4 million. They can still use part of the biannual exception, that's $4.8 million, I think, as well, but they cannot exceed the salary cap. We also have only one roster spot open right now with Lonzo Levine still on the roster. That's as well as counting for a non-guaranteed contract for Unrelap Batim as well. So the Bulls don't have a whole lot of flexibility, which is part of the reason why DeMar DeRozan is struggling out there right now to find a deal, because sign and trade options are basically all gone right now.
Yeah.
But our roster sits in a much younger place. The Bulls were the 11th oldest roster in the NBA last season at an average age of 27. Now, while that's not old in life, that is pretty old in NBA terms as far as rosters. Right now, again, this is still with Zach LaVine on the roster, Torrey Craig still on this roster, things like that. The Chicago Bulls have dropped almost 2 years on average off their age. How do you feel right now about the Chicago Bulls roster and the salary flexibility that they still could have if need be?
Listen, I think the fact that you've still got options is a good thing for you to be able to go out there and have. I think the fact that when you look at the fact that the Bulls have gotten woefully younger, right? Just from the Alex Caruso trade alone, it tells you that there's something that the Bulls see as a young core, a young future of this team. And the fact that you made moves to go get guys who didn't suck, but who just weren't getting the minutes because somebody else was there. Or like in the case of Josh Giddey, who was just being completely played out of position. He admitted as much. OKC admitted as much, right? Like OKC was like, no, you're being played out of position, so we're going to bring you off the bench so that you can be played at the right position. He's like, no, I'm better than that. Let's just find a way to get me up out of here. So the fact that you brought in 2 young players in Josh Giddey and Jalen Smith, who have a ton of upside, and when given more minutes have proven that they can do more with more minutes. The fact that you have young players on the team who already, right, Kobe White, we saw him get that opportunity to be able to take that step. You're just trying to hope that everybody, that 3 of the 5 young guys on this team, the main guys, right, the Io, Josh Giddey, Jalen Smith, Patrick Williams, Kobe White, that 3 of those 5 can kind of take a step at a similar time frame that puts them on the next trajectory, because now that sets you up where the cap flexibility that you have heading into 2024, like we talked about with 2025, is perfect, because now it's like, oh snap, this team actually isn't that bad. It's still Chicago. Y'all want to come over here and play basketball? And now you're able to add to a team that is growing internally with young pieces that still has some flexibility.
So the thing is that this team right now, and we 39 wins last season, is that right?
39 wins, yep.
Even if this team finishes at between 32 and 35 wins, you know why that's more of a win than what it was last year? Is because you're doing it with the young guys. You're doing it with guys that are developing. You're doing it with guys that you're trying to build something with long term. So it's a very different prospect when you're one of the older teams in the league winning 39 games, and you're one of the younger teams in the league winning 32 games, right? That's a big difference there. And so I do agree with you, is that even if the Bulls, which they will, we expect, we know we'll talk about predictions at some point, but like, even if this Bulls team does struggle, it depends on what's the growth in that struggle. And we've been struggling for the past 2.5 years, right? Because the half that year we were doing pretty good. But the fact of the matter is that we were struggling with players that were supposed to be in their prime.
Yeah.
That's not where you want to be struggling at.
No, and I think that's the perfect point, right? Like, I'll tell you, as much as we were down on 39 games last year, if the Bulls win 39 games this year, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Now it depends on how you win it, right? But like, if I got to the end of next season with the young guys and I'm like, Kobe White for sure took a step in the right direction. The Chicago Bull or Josh Giddey fits perfectly with this team. Jalen Smith still has a ways to come. Patrick Williams is who he is. Ayo Dosunmu kind of took over that Alex Caruso role. Boom, here we go. And you're sitting there and you're like, but I see a core. Now all of a sudden it's like, yeah, 39 wins, but moving in the right direction. Well, they won the same amount of games that they won last year. Yes, but it's how you're winning them. It's how you're going about putting the team together. And now, again, when we talk about the salary cap that the Bulls have in place, it is a situation that makes you feel like if you can get, like I said, 3 of those 5 guys to hit, it feels like there's a future with these guys versus, right? Because you don't want to just get young to be young. Right, like that's what a lot of people were like. Just get rid of everybody and blow it up, and we'll start at the bottom, and then you become Detroit. That's not the goal either, because Detroit is, I believe, they still the youngest team in basketball right now, right?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I believe Detroit is the youngest team.
I don't know, being in Detroit automatically ages you 5 years. So I mean, regardless of this,
I believe Detroit is the youngest team in the game right now.
Probably
like, that hasn't gotten them anything. You know what that's gotten them? Tobias Harris.
That's crazy.
Like, clap it up.
That's,
you know what I mean? Like, nobody wants to come there in free agency. Nobody wants to be a part of your team because everybody's looking at it and going, it's nothing but a bunch of young guys there, and there's nobody that's being cohesive. That's what you don't want the Bulls to become. And I think that if you see that this season, you feel a lot better heading into next year.
The Spurs were the youngest team in the NBA last season at 23.52.
That checks out.
But you've added Chris Paul this year.
That jumps you up at least 2 years.
So yeah, there you go. Detroit Pistons were average age of 24.8. So the Bulls are almost as young as the Detroit Pistons now. We're at 25.8, I believe. What was my calculations? 25.6 is the average age right now of the Chicago Bulls.
And you got a piece that it feels like is moving in the right direction.
That's facts.
That's the thing. You know what I mean? You've got they've got Cade. Cade is phenomenal. Cade is definitely right now. I'd take Cade over Kobe White. I really would. But they've got Cade, you've got Kobe. And that's why like the previous topic, the Lonzo and Levine topic, is so important, because you don't want to do anything to stunt that. You finally see something. It's been 5 years for Kobe? He'll be going into year 6 this year. You're finally seeing it. Like, yo, we about to give you the keys to the kingdom. Go out there and do something with it. And I don't want to see the Bulls do anything to slow down that progress, because I think the consistency will come from, hey, it's your night. Like, if you don't play well tonight, we lose. Like,
yeah, that's a fact. And there's going to be a lot of guys who are thrust upon into positions like that, like Patrick Williams. I think it's going
to be a lot of guys that are thrust upon.
It's going to be. My mom was so in the what I was trying to say. I didn't even think that's crazy. That's wild. That's a wild ass statement. But yeah, there's going to be so many people that are placed into that position. That doesn't sound any better either. There's going to be so many people that are in the position where we're going to have to rely on what they bring to the game. Whereas before, it was like, hey, you got to compliment with It's like, no, now we need you to play defense. We need you to go out there and try to lock somebody down. We need you to take these shots. And so that's gonna hopefully put them in a situation where a lot of these guys excel and grow. So
before we get out of here, who grows most from who has the most progression from having to be relied on this season in your mind?
I think it has to be Patrick Williams, right? I think it has to be.
To me, it's Josh Giddey.
See, but we've seen Josh Giddey in a position like that before, and he averaged 17, 6, and 6 in that time.
But I think that, like, can he be more than 17, 6, and 6 is phenomenal. I would love to have that on this Bulls team, but I don't think he'll be asked to be a scorer on this team. So if he's a guy that's like 12, but I think, can you see 12, 9, and 9?
You need to see, with what we know from this team right now, do you need isn't fair. Do you want to see double-digit assists by Josh Giddey this
100%.
year?
I want to see Josh Giddey be – I said the perfect version of Josh Giddey for me would be basically a Rajon Rondo type of player. Now, I don't think he'll ever get to the defensive levels, but if he came into every game and he was like, no, I can put up 25 plus, but I don't want to. Like, I want to come out of this with 15 assists. I think that impacts more to the team. And we've seen that, right? With Tyrese Halliburton, that made so many of the players better on his team that they were able to get to the Eastern Conference Finals by basically like not having him for most of the season, playing, or the second half of the season playing at that same level. Like, to me, that's more important to this young Bulls team than anything. Having that legit point guard that can get everybody involved and can come away with, hey, on any given night, I can have 15 and 10 and it could be assists and rebounds.
Completely agree with you. Completely agree with you there, brother. Any last thoughts before we get up out of here?
Nah, man. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Hit that like button, subscribe to the page, leave a 5-star review. Y'all know what to do, man. Follow us on everything at Locked On Bulls. Follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. And don't get thrust apart, I guess.
That's crazy. I will say this before I leave. James Wiseman signed a deal, so finally Bulls fans can shut up about us signing James Wiseman. You guys can follow me at CEO Haize, man. We love you guys, man. You can follow us at Locked On Bulls. We are free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube and the Odyssey app. For Pat the Designer, we out of here. Peace, y'all.
Peace.
James Wiseman.
James Wiseman averaged 17 minutes last season and 5 rebounds. 7'2".
All right, bro. I know you